Worried about completing your first Ironman swim? In this video, I'll show you how to fix 5 key mistakes that could ruin your Ironman swim with simple, practical solutions to improve pacing, technique, and confidence before race day. I'm Coach Rob Bilby from Team Oxygenaddict. Let's get to it. Before we jump in, if you're preparing for your first Ironman, there's a link in the show notes for a free online training seminar. It's 30 minutes of your time that I guarantee will massively increase your chances of success on Ironman race day. I'd also love it if you'd subscribe to our channel and like this video if you enjoy it. Let's get started on these mistakes and what you can do to fix them. Making all your long swims continuous. Now, this is something that athletes who come to us for coaching, they're often really confused by. It seems to make sense that what you should do, preparing for a long continuous swim, is all of your swims should be long and continuous, and you should build up your ability to swim a long continuous swim. What we find is, while that's important in the later part of your training plan, in the early part of your training plan, most people struggle with the fact that as they get tired and as they fatigue, their form falls apart. And what ends up happening if you try to do a really long continuous swim before you're conditioned for it is you end up embedding the stroke flaws. As your stroke falls apart, you embed that into your stroke and you practice the incorrect technique. And the old adage says, practice makes permanent. That's very true in this case. Practice does not make perfect. Practice makes permanent. And so what we want to do is we want to practice as many perfect strokes as we can. So in the earlier days of your training plan, what I'm going to advise is, instead of, say, trying to swim 1,000 meters all in one go, break that up into 10 by 100 meters with a short rest. It only needs to be 3 to 5 seconds between each 100. But those little micro recoveries allow the muscles in your shoulders, your neck, your back to recover, meaning that your technique won't fall apart. And as I've said, most beginners find that if they track their pace per 100 across a 1,000-meter swim, they gradually get slower. If they break that 1,000-meter swim up into 10 by 100, they find they can keep coming in on the same pace per 100 for each of those hundreds. That means you're practicing correct technique, and swimming, especially in the early days, is much more about practicing perfect technique, just like thinking you would practice a tennis stroke or practice a golf swing. It's a technique-based sport as much as it's a fitness-based sport. So, in the early days, make those swims broken up. And then as you progress towards your Ironman race day, you can start to introduce longer intervals of 500 meters, 1,000 meters, and eventually you can start doing really long continuous swims. But they only need to be in the last 4 weeks before your Ironman. Up until that point, those micro breaks are going to ensure that you're building up your fitness and, most importantly, your ability to hold your technique together in the correct way. Skipping open water practice. Now, this is a really tough one for athletes who are racing early season, especially if you're in the UK. If you're racing in an early season Ironman, it might be that open water is just too cold to swim in the early part of the season. But open water practice is really essential for you to get to the point where you'll feel confident in open water when you go to race day. Now, that sounds obvious, but you'd be really surprised the number of athletes who come to us for whom it is really difficult to get into open water because of the barriers of temperature, say, or even sometimes because of the barriers to physically getting to a lake or an ocean that they can swim in. This is the challenge you have to set yourself way ahead of time. If you know you're going to be swimming in open water, you need to make a plan to get the training sessions done in open water. Every week, I would suggest for 8 weeks in the lead up to race day. That might mean that you plan which race you enter so that you have that 8-week window to practice in open water in the lead up to race day. If your swim is going to be in the ocean, if you're swimming, say, Ironman Wales, there's a good chance you're going to be facing open water conditions there with, at the very least, some chop and possibly rolling swell on the water. You're going to have to figure out how to get to the ocean if you don't live near it, how to safely practice in the ocean. And I would advise not just going in on your own, finding some managed open water swim venues you can go to where there are lifeguards, where there's possibly open water coaching. Practice this ahead of time and make a plan so that you're not getting to 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks before Ironman race day and suddenly realizing you've never swum in the ocean, you've never swum in salty water, you've never swum in any kind of open water before. So skipping the open water practice is a big mistake we see a lot of first timers make, not necessarily because they don't understand the importance of it, but because of the difficult barriers that are thrown up in front of them and they haven't found a way to overcome those barriers. Not following structured swim sessions. Now, what I mean by that is we hear from some athletes who come to us for coaching. They just go to the pool and they just swim. They don't really know what the session is going to be before they get in the water. And because of that, it's not so much a problem on an individual day-by-day basis. But if each one of those swims 2 or 3 times a week for 16, 18, 20 weeks is unplanned, you're not really planning for success there. Similarly, athletes who go and they swim at club sessions that might be coached by different coaches on different days, they're making an assumption that the coach knows what events they're going to be doing, which can sometimes be correct, but often can't be. And they also make the assumption that a series of club swims is going to be planned in a way that's going to lead you to an event. And that's often not the case as well. Often club swims are standalone club swims. They're not aimed to build towards a certain event. So it's really worth your time if you're in that position, if you're an uncoached athlete going to a tri-club swim, talk to the coach about the purpose of the swim, explain what event you're aiming for, and ask whether the swims that you're turning up for are actually appropriate for the kind of swims that you want to do. I've seen lots of cases where athletes have turned up assuming that a tri-club swim is aimed at a swimmer like them, and actually the club coach might not even be a triathlete. They'll definitely be a qualified swim coach, but it might be a very swim squad oriented type swim that might involve a lot of short, hard sprints that just might not be relevant to you. Make sure you're following a set of structured swim sessions that are leading you progressively to the event that you're going to do. It's no problem for athletes that are coached by coaches who know where you're going to. They've got an overall plan taking you to your event. But if that's not you, you need to do something ahead of time to make sure that the swim sets that you're doing are going to help you get you where you want to be. Failing to practice skills in open water. So even if athletes are getting into open water, a mistake I see people making is them getting in and just going for a swim. The reality of a race being in open water is there are some skills that you're going to need that will make a big difference to how long the swim takes. It's not just about your swim fitness. So we need to talk about your ability to sight accurately. We need to talk about your ability to swim in a straight line accurately in open water. And we need to talk about your ability to use the other swimmers around you to your advantage to draft off possibly as well. So those 3 skills are really important. They are practicable in a pool as well, but you have to also be able to do this in open water. You have to be able to practice swimming in a straight line between 2 buoys. And a great way to do this is to have the GPS on your watch track how you swim and look at the trace afterwards. Another way is to have a partner, a friend, a training partner on the beach watching you trying to swim in a straight line between 2 places. And often what you'll find is just the movement of currents in the water or the wind blowing across the water means although it feels like you're swimming in a straight line between 2 points, you might actually be drifting in one way or the other. Now, the good, effective open water swimmers have skills available to them that they can constantly check as they're swimming. Is the buoy I'm swimming to lined up with something in the background? Maybe you can see some trees on the shore. Maybe you can see a mountain on the shore in the background. Learn the skills of lining up the buoy you're swimming with something else behind it, and that'll help you see whether you're swimming in a straight line. But definitely get into the open water, not just with the idea of practicing the actual swimming itself, but with the idea of practicing the skills that are going to help you swim in a straight line and keep track of where you're going with sighting on race day. Starting the race too hard. So this is entirely focused on your race day performance, but you can practice this in training as well. Almost every athlete and probably every first timer makes the mistake of going off much harder than they mean to and much harder than they realize they're doing when the gun goes on race day. Everyone's excited. You're surrounded by people. There's adrenaline. There's crowds. It's really hard to calm yourself down enough to swim at a nice relaxed pace. You're also not getting any feedback because it's really hard when you're in open water, can't really look at your watch and get any accurate feedback about how fast you're swimming. So you have to be very tuned in over those first 200, 300 meters into making sure you're consciously slowing yourself down, because it's possible to swim really fast without realizing it for the first 200 meters and then find that you're really, really out of breath. And then it takes you time to recover in the water. People who struggle with panic, often it's down to swimming much too fast as you set off. So learn the skills of really starting a swim easily and well within your ability, so that you don't go off way too hard and blow your race to pieces before you've even started. Okay, now I hope this video has helped you. Do me a favor, in the comments below, I'd love to hear about mistakes that you've made in the past in your Ironman swim. Really help the other athletes in our community not make those mistakes. And if you're a first timer, let us know in the comments what your worries are and we'll try and help you. And remember, please like and subscribe to the channel.